Hello, horror fans, and welcome to the Script Screen podcast, where we delve into the spine tingling world of horror cinema. Each week, we look at the scariest scenes, unmask the deeper meanings behind your favourite horror films, and explore the psychology of fear that keeps us coming back for more.
From script analysis to scene breakdowns, we'll be dissecting your favourite horror movies to see just what makes them tick. So, whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado or just starting to explore the genre, join us as we unravel the spine tingling stories that haunt the silver screen.
I am Will.
And as always, I am Lee.
So, Lee, how's things, buddy? How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. How's you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Have you watched anything of interest since we last chatted?
Um, yeah, I've had a few pretty cool things on the list. But before we go too deep into this week's films, I just want to congratulate you on getting your master's degree in screenwriting, dude. Well done and well deserved. I know you
Uh,
worked your ass off for it.
Oh, thanks, dude. Thank you very much. And likewise, Lee, a huge congratulations on getting your master's degree. Oh, man, it's been such an amazing journey to go through this. I'm so pleased we got to share it.
Yeah, definitely has been like a highlight of the course. So yeah, it's been fantastic, and it's a great course. Falmouth University in the UK. It's all online. You can do it from anywhere in the world. So if you've got an interest in screenwriting at all, I mean, I can't recommend it enough. It's been fantastic. You know,
Yeah,
the
it's been
the
amazing.
contacts, the knowledge, everything is just amazing.
Yeah, I can't agree more, Lee. It's been such a great course, such a great setup. Great sort of tutors, met some wonderful people, and learned a lot. So it's been really, really good.
Nice. Nice. Well, like I said, that's the shameless plug for the course done. But seriously, it is a great course, so I highly recommend checking it out. But as for my watch list this week, well, I watched a few pretty cool things this week. The best one was probably Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, which proved to be a real banger and another win for me for Korean horror cinema. They're just killing it at the moment.
Yeah, so I heard of this one. So this is based on a real location, is that right?
Indeed, the Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital is said to be one of the most haunted places in the entire world, and it has a deliciously dark history which only serves to add to its ominous mystique.
Yeah, sounds like a lovely place to visit.
Well, if the film is anything to go by, I will definitely be adding it to my destinations to avoid list.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, dude, anyone looking to actually visit a haunted psychiatric hospital needs to have a quiet word to themselves, I think. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the film. Out of interest, Lee, what else was on your destinations to avoid list?
Well, at the moment, the list consists of Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital, Australia, London, and IKEA.
Yeah, man. Well, I totally get IKEA, but Australia, really?
Beautiful country, but I am severely allergic to bug bites, so I'd probably be dead the moment I stepped off the plane. Plus drop bears.
Drop bears? Yeah, you know what, Lee? Never mind. But as far as movies go, Gonjam, is that worth checking out?
Absolutely, man, absolutely. It's a little slow to start with, but once it hits its stride, it does not let up for a second, and it makes really good use of the tried and tested found footage genre. I also checked out a decent enough shark exploitation flick, The Last Breath, which was worth price of admission for the late great Julian Sands. How about you, my man? What's been on your screens this week?
Well, this week I actually didn't get a great lot of time, so I did have a look at Underwater, which was sort of Brian Duffield's script.
Ah, I love that film.
Yeah, so that was really good
Great
fun.
film.
Really enjoyed
Mm.
that one. Sort of wonderfully shot. Vincent Cassel, fantastic in that, and obviously Kirsten Stewart's great as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I thought it was fab. But
Awesome.
I mean, Lee, you are a sucker for some shark exploitation. I mean, it's no wonder you hate the ocean, dude.
I don't hate the ocean per se. I just hate being on or in or around it.
Mm. Lee Bentley, ocean hater.
Ah, don't start spreading that, man. I'll be forcefully tarred. So, anyway, what is strapped to the table for dissection this week?
Okay, well, this weekly we'll be taking a deep dive into the 2008 herbivorous horror, The Ruins.
Ah, this is such a cool film. A real hidden gem, I think.
So, released April 4th, 2008, and directed by Carter Smith, The Ruins brought in a little under 23 million at the box office on an $8 million budget. However, it would find notoriety on streaming services such as Netflix, where it ranked for a while in the Streaming Titans Global Top 10 Lee.
Nice. We'll be comparing the film with a copy of the script dated 19th of January 2007 and weighing in at a word-breaking 137 pages. As always, we are looking at these scripts for educational purposes only, and all rights remain with their respective authors and creators.
Yeah, absolutely. So, seeing as the runtime of the film is a pretty lean 90 minutes, Lee, I'm interested to see what got the chop here. So, why don't you tell us why have you chosen this particular movie for us to dissect?
Okay, well, besides being a great film, first off, this is based off of the novel of the same name written by Scott Smith, who interestingly was also commissioned to write the screenplay. Thus, we have a very unique opportunity to not only compare the two works, but to look in a little more depth at how the author went about adapting his own work for the screen.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. So, two quick questions, Lee. Have you read the book? And if so, do you think it's worth a read?
Yes, and wholeheartedly yes. There is a lot of depth in the book that understandably has to be cut for the film, but it is a truly fantastic read.
Okay. Well, I'll add that to my ever-growing reading list. Okay, so what else?
Well, one of the key themes in horror is isolation, yeah? And our hapless heroes quickly find themselves stranded in a very unique and terrifying location. So, we'll be looking at how to use isolation to build fear and tension. Finally, and this plays nicely into the previous reason, this movie contains a brilliantly unique and terrifying monster, which leads us, as always, into the classic Blake Snyder monster in the house theme.
Awesome. So we will be looking at how the writer adapts his novel into a screenplay, how isolation fuels terror, and how this couples with a unique monster to perfectly illustrate Snyder's monster in the house.
Bang on.
Awesome. Well, buckle in, folks, as we take a deep dive into the ruins. A group of American tourists in Mexico venture into a remote Mayan ruin, only to discover it is inhabited by a malevolent man eating vine. Trapped by armed locals, they must survive the pernicious plant and locate a means of escape before they are broken down and consumed one by one. So we open somewhere dark. A young woman, clearly in a great deal of distress, screams for help as something unseen lurks in the shadows around her. She tries to get a signal on her cell phone, but is violently yanked away into the cloying darkness.
Classic example of a cold open, and one that isn't actually present in the script.
Yeah, so what do you think they changed this opening, Lee? Also, it might be worth explaining, just for those who are unfamiliar with the term, what exactly is meant by a cold open.
Okay, well, if you take this opening scare out, then nothing remotely frightening happens for a good 20 minutes on screen, or 30 minutes if you're going by the page. And you want people to know the kind of movie they're sitting down to enjoy.
Yeah, got to establish that tone early on.
Exactly. And if your script has a fairly lengthy setup, a cold open is a great way to let the audience know what they'll be in for if they have like little patience. As for the term itself, it basically boils down to having an opening scene that sets the tone for the film. In horror movies, it will often feature characters that are absent from the film itself as they rarely survive the events of the opening scene. It can also serve as a hook to grab audiences' attention right from the get go, or as a handy way to get some initial exposition out of the way. Definitely a useful tool when it comes to snaring the attention spans of the TikTok generation.
Yeah. And do you have a favorite cold open, Lee?
Oh man, horror has so many great ones. It's tough to pick. Halloween, It, and Scream, to name a small few. If you're asking non horror, then it's probably Mission Impossible 3. I love that opening.
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah, there's so many out there. I mean, I mean, they're all non-horror, but I thought, well, except for Jaws, maybe, but Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Up has a great one. I don't know if you've seen Up.
Yeah, yeah.
Dark Knight and Inglorious Bastards, obviously.
Mm.
Anyway, we're getting distracted, Lee. From the mysterious darkness, we shift to an aerial shot of the Mexican jungle and a faint sound of screams as the title is superimposed on the screen in blood red. Oh, it's ominous. From the foreboding jungle to a holiday resort as we join two young couples poolside. The serious looking Jeff, played by Jonathan Tucker. Lounging in the sun is his girlfriend Amy, played by the always fantastic Jenna Maloney. And they are joined by Stacy, portrayed by Laura Ramsey, and Eric, who is brilliantly played by genre legend Sean Ashmore. Stacy and Eric share a kiss, Jeff and Amy some affectionate banter, thus establishing who is in a relationship with who. Everything seems pretty light-hearted until Amy realizes she has lost an earring.
Oh no.
Yes, the first real scare really of the film. Never fear, though, as nearby observer Matthias dons a snorkel and plucks the errant earring from the pool, much to Amy's delight, of course, and earning himself a place at their poolside siesta. So it's a little creepy how he was both watching them and eavesdropping on their conversation, no?
Definitely. In the script, though, his involvement is much more happenstance, as the jovial German is just walking past when he spots Amy gesture to her ear and then spots the missing jewelry in the pool and puts two and two together.
Yeah. So as always, Lee, I'm going to ask the question, why do you think the change was made here?
Well, intentional or not, it does make Matthias seem just a little sinister, which could be an intentional move to put the audience slightly on edge. Alternatively, compared to a lot of the screenplays we look at, this one feels quite bloated. I don't know if it's down to an early draft we happened upon, or is more due to the author's original novelistic style, but my brain kept reading the script and thinking I could cut that and that and that. So let me be clear, I'm not slating the script or the author here, but hell, dude, you know my style. I'm all about trimming until it's almost to the bone.
Yeah, you can be pretty ruthless on the cut, Lee. Yeah, I can vouch for that. Has Smith written any other screenplays, just out of interest?
Interestingly, he wrote the script for A Simple Plan, to which, incidentally, he also wrote the novel upon which it was based.
Ah, cool. Okay, so a definite pattern here. And to be fair, I mean, I've often heard if you want to get a film made, write it as a novel first, right?
It's easy as that, mate. Easy as that.
Yeah, well, maybe not that easy, but an option that's worked in the past, I guess. Back at poolside, and conversation falls to Matthias's brother, who ran off to join a hot girl at a restricted archaeological dig site at an old mine temple. The dig site is strictly off the map, Lee. He's going to join him tomorrow and suggests they accompany him, a suggestion that they all pretty much heartedly embrace.
Yeah, is this an age thing, do you think? I mean, if I met some random dude at a pool, then 5 minutes later he offered to take me to some secluded mystery spot in the jungle, wild horses would not drag me there, man.
Oh, come on, Lee, where's your sense of adventure?
Long buried alongside my senses of joy and fulfillment. But seriously, would you go with him?
Yeah, probably not actually. I mean, to be honest, I'm a beaten track kind of guy these days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying Matthias is shifty, but if he were to be a Mick Taylor-esque serial killer, he'd be laughing at just how easy it was to ensnare these gullible Americans.
Yeah, just find an earring, it seems. But it'd be one hell of a short movie if they turned him down, so we're going to move on. Now, this is also one hell of an exposition dump, and there's some really clunky dialogue here, such as they're best friends and we're their boyfriends, and then Matthias's missing brother speech.
Yeah, it's not quite he was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died. Bad, but it's not great dialogue by any means. It does, however, serve the purpose of getting the information across both quickly and efficiently. Now, point of fact, in the script, it's not until page 13 that the decision is reached to accompany Matthias, whereas the decision is in the bag and done by 6 minutes and 20 seconds on the screen.
Yeah, the choice is much less rushed in the script, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot more organic in nature, but it does take a lot more time. And as we mentioned earlier, this is a classic monster in the house script. And the quicker we get to the house, the quicker we get to the monster, and the quicker the fun can begin.
Yeah, absolutely. So, still at poolside, Matthias introduces the group to some rambunctious young Greeks who may be accompanying him on his jungle jaunt the next day. The pair invite the group to a beach party that night, and sure enough, that's where we cut to.
Party!
It seems Amy likes to party a little too hard, and we learn that Jeff will soon be heading off to med school.
Yeah, I feel his medical knowledge will come in useful before the credits roll.
Yeah, set up Lee. I doubt they mention it if it wouldn't prove to be of some relevance later. So, ever the sensible one, Jeff turns in for the night while a drunkenly flirtatious Amy starts to get a little hot and heavy with Matthias, who, to his credit, is quick to offload the intoxicated girl back to her friends. Judging by Eric and Stacey's banter, this is not new behavior from Amy.
Yeah, in the script, it's a lad from the party she gets flirty with, but in both cases, her friends prevent her from going too far.
Yeah, so the following morning, Jeff is up bright and early for a morning run where he comes across two comatose Greeks. Looks like they won't be joining them on their jungle adventure after all, Lee. Back at the hotel pool, the sole sober Greek, Dimitri, is making a map with Matthias, which he leaves with his slumbering buddies. Eric and Stacey share a flirty wake up, and Eric bemoans Amy's raucous behavior the previous night. At this point, Stacey makes him a promise not to say anything to Jeff. In Jeff and Amy's room, the young woman is hungover and spewing her guts up into the toilet, Lee, while Jeff freshens up in the shower. Amy is not keen on the jungle expedition and is quite happy just to sleep the last day off, but Jeff does manage to talk her round.
Yeah, that is a decision I feel she's going to strongly regret in the near future. Also, there is no Dmitri in the script, although he does feature very heavily in the novel.
One off screen journey later, and our six intrepid adventurers exit a bus to find themselves in the middle of a small Mexican village. Matthias is unable to reach his errant brother Heinrich on the phone, and the group set about searching for a cab to take them the last 11 miles to the ruins. They locate a yellow pickup with the word taxi spray painted on the side. Totally reliable and on the level, I think, Lee. The
Yeah.
driver tells them the place they want to go is no good, but quickly relents to the American dollar, and the group pile into the back.
In the script, the driver is a lot more reluctant to take them and becomes quite angry when they ignore his advice, although ultimately he still agrees to take them in exchange for payment.
Yeah, quite the angry dog in this taxi too, Lee. Must be the heat, I think. Now, the destination lies far off the beaten path, deep in the jungle. And despite the undeniably beautiful scenery, on arrival, Amy is visibly concerned after the taxi hastily departs. She ponders how they are going to get back, a question nobody seems to have considered in great detail. Jeff states that they'll just call the pickup driver as they have his card, and Matthias has a phone which seems to get signal way out in the sticks.
In the script, this is a much more in depth conversation that feels almost lifted straight from the book itself.
They note Heinrich's Jeep, as well as another abandoned vehicle, which seems like it's been there a lot longer. During their trek through the jungle, Eric subtly teases Amy about her encounter with Matthias the night before, and we learn that there is a mine village close to the ruins, and if they encounter it, they've gone too far.
Yeah, I feel they may have already gone too far, dude.
Yeah, I think Amy has. They spot a couple of moderately sinister village children watching them in the distance, and as Matthias uncovers the path to the ruins, which seems to have been crudely hidden, one of the children sprints away. The girls question why the path was hidden, but still the group presses only. Finally, they arrive at the titular ruins, a massive Mayan pyramid standing all alone in the center of a barren field and covered in thick foliage. So it's undeniably breathtaking, but oddly sinister.
Yeah, the strange isolation of the ruins will be made clear in time, but there's a reason why nothing grows between it and the surrounding forest.
Yeah, absolutely. So Matthias spots a tent atop the ruins, but before they can investigate further, an enraged pistol carrying Mayan bursts from the jungle on horseback and begins screaming at them in a language which they obviously don't understand.
Yeah, the script is interestingly specific here. Check this out. The bald man shouts at them in unsubtitled Mayan. His horse is lathered, snorting, rolling its eyes. It rears yet again, and the man half falls, half jumps to the ground. Jeff and the others back up a few more steps into the clearing. Now, obviously, the writer does not want us to know the reason why they shouldn't be near the ruins, to the point he literally states it in the script.
Yeah, it would give away some major plot points to be sure. And to be fair, I'm sure the director would have shot it like that anyway.
Yeah, I think so too. But there's also a cool little action line in the script depicting the horse's reaction to being close to the pyramid, and it goes like this. The man can't gain control of the horse. Finally, he drops the reins and the horse gallops into the jungle, crashing through the trees, its hoof beats gradually diminishing.
Yeah, it's so cool, isn't it? So Jeff and Matthias try to talk the angry Mayan chap down, but he is joined by two more armed locals. At this point, Matthias shows them a picture of his brother on his cell phone. All the while, Amy is slowly backing towards the ruins, photographing the tense encounter. The lead mine notices that she's backed onto the vines covering the pyramid, and suddenly all hell breaks loosely. Weapons are drawn, and Dimitri, believing her cameras offended them, steps into the vines to take it from her and tries to surrender it to the Mayans as a peace offering.
Oh, big mistake.
Yeah, big mistake indeed, as the young Greek takes an arrow to the chest before being shot in the face by the lead Mayan. Unbelievable scenes, Lee. It's a really well done shot here too, as the camera is focused squarely on Dimitri, so there's no hint of the attack coming for us. It makes his summary execution quite shocking and brutal. It's also our first real scare since the cold open, and it clocks in at 23 minutes and 9 seconds.
As there's no Dimitri in the script, there is also no execution here. Instead, once Amy steps on the vine, the Mayans usher them all up the pyramid. Now, interestingly, in the script, it's made clear that the lead Mayan tries everything he can to get them away from the pyramid, and it's only reluctantly after Amy has stepped on the vines that he relents to his comrades and ushers them up the steps. Check it out.
Matthias nods, starting across the clearing. The bold man shouts at him in Mayan, and then, when Matthias doesn't stop, pulls his pistol from his holster, fires into the sky. Everyone flinches, half ducking. Stacy screams. Matthias goes still. The man waves at him, yelling in Mayan, and Matthias comes back, his hands raised to join the others. Hoofbeats are approaching from the jungle again. They come closer and closer, and suddenly two more horsemen burst into the clearing. They're younger than the bold man. Back to scene, as they continue to interrogate the bold man in Mayan, the young men unsling their bows, each of them knocking an arrow. Reflexively, Jeff and the others retreat another handful of steps into the clearing. Matthias still has his hands raised. Eric, what the fuck? Jeff, quiet. Eric, there. Jeff, wait and see. Amy is a bit farther into the clearing than Jeff and the others. She keeps swinging her camera from them to the Mayans, trying to capture the whole scene in one shot. She's too close though, and she retreats another handful of steps. Amy's POV through the viewfinder. Still backing up towards the hill, all of them but Stacy and Eric are in the frame now. The bold man is still answering the young man's questions. He turns towards us suddenly, points his pistol directly at us, starts to shout. Back to scene. Jeff and the others turn too, staring at Amy in surprise. She's nearly at the far edge of the clearing, peering through the camera. She retreats another step. The young Mayans raise their bows, drawing them. The bold man keeps yelling, Jeff, Amy! She takes another step. She's right up against the vines. Amy's POV through the viewfinder. Stacy is in the frame now. We retreat one more step, and so is Eric. And the Mayans with their raised weapons, the bold man still shouting. Everything freezes on the click. Back to the scene. Amy lowers her camera. The Mayan with the mustache turns to the other two, points towards her feet, speaking urgently. The bold Mayan slowly lowers his pistol, looking dismayed. Amy glances down. Amy's POV, her feet. She stepped out of the clearing into the flowing vine. Back to scene. Both of the younger Mayans are speaking now, their voices rising. The bold man is shaking his head, protesting, but they talk right over him. Amy steps clear of the vine, starts back toward Jeff, and the younger Mayans draw their bows taut again, aiming at her chest. She freezes. Amy, Jeff? Jeff lifts his hands without looking, his eyes on the Mayans. Jeff, don't move. The bold man continues to frown and shake his head. He points to Amy, then the others. He waves towards the jungle. But the young men are implacable. They keep arguing, gesturing, and finally the bold man gives in, falls silent. A beat, then the bold man raises his pistol, aims it at Jeff's chest. He makes a shooting motion with his other hand, but now it's towards Amy and the hill beyond her. He begins to shout. The other men do too. Then the bold man fires a bullet into the dirt at Jeff's feet. Everyone jumps, starts to retreat. The men with the bows are swinging them back and forth, herding them towards the hill. When Jeff and the others reach Amy, the bold man points towards the trail, waves them up it. He watches, his expression looking stricken, close to tears, as the five of them obediently begin to climb the vine-covered hill. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because the script definitely paints the Mayans in a slightly less sinister light, although I feel the actor playing the lead Mayan does a pretty good job of selling his anguish after shooting Dimitri.
Yeah, that would be one Sergio Calderon, a veteran actor with 6 decades worth of credits to his name, the coolest of which, I think, is being the first villain ever to face off against the A-Team.
Nice. Dun, dun,
Dun,
dun, dun,
dun,
dun,
dun, dun,
dun. Yeah,
dun.
Lee, you know.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay, so also that section nicely illustrates what you were saying about the script feeling a little bloated. I mean, it definitely has a novelistic feel to it, doesn't it? Perhaps unsurprisingly, I think. So there's also quite a lot of over direction, something I know we've been taught to avoid in our own writing, and something you'd normally be more likely to see in a shooting draft. But back to the movie, though, and our hapless tourists scramble up the ruined pyramid as more armed minds emerge from the trees and form a perimeter around the temple, effectively trapping our young folk inside.
Whoa. Note how the Mayans are not pursuing them up the pyramid itself and are still keeping a healthy distance away. Incidentally, I think I'd put Dimitri's execution and the group being ushered up the pyramid as the end of Act One. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'd agree too. Definitely moved into a new phase of the story now, I think. So it's clear the villagers obviously know something that we don't at this point, and I'd wager whatever it is will not bode well for our protagonists. At the top of the ruins, the team discovers a couple of abandoned tents, a crude pulley and winch leading down into the temple itself, and no other signs of life. No Heinrich, nothing. To make matters worse, Eric has no phone signal, and Matthias's phone is still with the lead Mayan down in the clearing. It's worth noting that Matthias is gravely concerned for his brother's well-being here, so I think it's safe to say any notion of his motives being secretly sinisterly can be abandoned now.
Yeah, definitely. And here's hoping Heinrich is somehow safe and sound.
Yeah. You can abandon hope for that, matey, as Matthias notices a pair of shoes jutting from a growth of vines, and after tearing into them, he finds his brother's body, an arrow lodged in his chest, and what looks like a gunshot wound to the face.
In the script, Heinrich's body is located in the clearing at the base of the pyramid beneath a knoll of twisted vines, and without Dimitri's execution on the page, this is the point where our heroes realize just how dangerous the Mayans are.
Interesting. Now, I have a question, Lee.
Okay, fire away.
So, if the Mayans are trying to keep people from leaving the pyramid, why would they shoot Heinrich when he's still on top of it?
Okay, I have a couple of potential explanations for this. Firstly, it may not be a gunshot wound on the dead German's face, which would mean he could have taken the arrow to the chest, staggered back up the pyramid before expiring. Or, secondly, and much more likely, as we will soon learn, the pyramid is covered in sentient man eating vines, which are capable of movement and dragging their prey away. Therefore, I think it's most likely he was shot at the base of the pyramid and then subsequently dragged upward post mortem.
Okay. So Jeff watches as the Mayans set up camp around the pyramid, the ladies from the village bringing them enough food and water to settle in for the long haul. So things are not looking goodly at this point. Eric ponders what happened to the girl Heinrich was with, and Jeff's medical expertise first comes into play as he treats Matthias's hands, which have seemingly been burnt due to an allergic reaction from tearing at the vines.
First little hint at the danger the vines pose.
Sinister. The crew discuss potential rescue scenarios, remembering that the slumbering Greeks have a map and should be joining them at some point in the next few days. And if not, the police will eventually be made aware of their absence. So it's a small ray of hope, but at least it's something. Jeff then snatches a water bottle from Stacy, much to her and Eric's annoyance. The first strand of conflict appears as the group's dynamic starts to break down under the pressure, perhaps. Jeff quickly shuts them down with some medical facts about how much water their bodies need to survive and how much they actually have, thus enforcing the need for rationing.
In the script, it's Amy that bemoans the loss of her water and the need for rationing.
So back on the screen, and the sound of a ringing phone sparks some hope amongst our stranded survivors. The downside is that it seems to be coming from within the temple itself, Lee. No, which means somebody's got to ride that winch down into the darkness. Matthias recognizes it as his brother's ringtone and without hesitation ties the rope around his waist as Jeff organizes the group to help winch him down.
That boy's got some stones on him, I'll give him that.
Yeah, despite the young German's titanic testes, he's no more than 20 feet down when Amy notices the rope starting to fray.
In the script, it's made clear that they left some vines on the rope, and as it was crushed by the winch, causes corrosive sap to seep into the rope, and that's the same as the book. Speaking of the novel, it is Dmitri that takes this faithful ride down into the temple with the same agonizing outcome.
Yeah, it's a hauntingly beautiful shot as Matthias drops into the void. And I think this counts as a scare. What do you say?
Absolutely, man. It's a universal fear, like two, in fact, compacted into one fear of the dark and fear of heights. And it clocks in at just before the 30-minute mark.
Now, after a painful silence, Matthias's agonized groans can be heard, and Jeff immediately informs the girls that one of them has to go down the shaft, something that Amy especially is not happy about. It's Stacy that volunteers to go, while Jeff checks the rest of the rope to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, shame they didn't do that first, eh?
Yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda, Lee. And one could argue that Stacy is even braver, having seen what happened to the last person who attempted this descent.
Yeah, no doubt. She is putting poor Amy to shame at this point.
As the brave lass descends into the pit, the vines grow thicker as the darkness deepens, and we get the briefest glimpse of the vines twitching as Stacy descends past them. It's not long before she reaches the end of the rope, still a little way from the bottom, but low enough to see Matthias. Jeff asks if she can jump the last distance.
Fuck off, Jeff.
Yeah, that does seem both a little unreasonable and not the most sensible of ideas. My initial thoughts being, how the hell is she supposed to get back up? However, Stacy takes the plunge, brave girl, and lands beside the mangled Matthias, slicing her leg open on his shattered lantern.
In the script, it is Stacy who decides to take the plunge of her own accord, thus painting Jeff in a slightly better light. Check it out.
Stacy, wait. The rope has almost stopped its swaying. Exterior hilltop, the clearing. Jeff steps back to the hole, peers into it. So does Amy. Eric waits by the windlass. The rope is completely played out. Stacy shouts, her voice echoing slightly. Stacy, off screen. I want to stay with him. Jeff, you can't. We have to. Stacy, off screen. I'll jump. Jeff glances at the others. Eric shakes his head. Jeff calls down to her. Jeff, we might not be able to make it longer. You'll be trapped. Stacy, off screen. What about him? We can't just leave him. Jeff, we'll pull you up. Then we'll see. He starts toward the windlass again. On Stacy, in the sling. The rope jerks, and she begins to rise. She kicks her legs, lifts her left arm overhead, wrenches it free of the sling, so that only her right arm remains hooked. She switches the lamp from her right to her left, then slips completely free of the sling, the lamp fluttering out as she drops. So this is interesting. Again, Lee, I mean, why the change, do you think, here?
I'm not sure. I mean, perhaps it paints Stacy in too heroic a light, or maybe their intention is to make Jeff less likable. It could even be just to streamline things a little bit. I mean, I'm not really sure. What's your take?
Yeah, I think it's probably just streamlining here. So Stacey, I mean, does ultimately decide to jump in both the film and the script. And I think in the film, it's made pretty clear that Matthias's plea for help ultimately persuades her to jump down. So yeah, probably just streamlining, I think. Either way, Stacey informs the group that Matthias's back may be broken, so he can't feel his legs. He also unfortunately seems to have lost control of his bowels, Lee. Something I'm sure you're not used to at all at your age.
Back off. You know what they say, once you hit the age of 45, every time you do a fart, the gods toss a coin.
I wasn't aware of that, Lee, though. Jeff immediately starts to plan how to make a backboard, but Amy has had enough and decides to go and ask the mines for help.
Solid idea, Amy. Good plan.
Yeah, she rushes off down the pyramid as Jeff hurries to stop her.
Yeah, I mean, incidentally, we were talking about how bloated the script felt. I mean, we're at 35 minutes in the film and at 60 pages in the script.
Yeah, that's one hell of a difference when you consider we haven't really lost any major scenes from the script here.
Yeah, proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
Yeah. So back on screen, and a hysterical Amy begs the mines for help, but it's not forthcoming, and they threateningly try to usher her and Jeff back up the ruins. In her frustration, she tears a clump of sod and vine from the ground and hurls it at them. Her monoecious missile strikes a young Mayan boy and his people immediately back away from him in terror before the lead mine shoots him in the head as the poor boy's mother wails in the background. It's brutally. So our newest scare clocks in at 36 minutes and 35 seconds, and it's pretty damn savage, dude.
Absolutely. In the script, the boy is referred to as a young Mayan, but it's not inferred that it's a child. And yeah, man, this is pretty damn savage. It also clarifies beyond any doubt the reason why our heroes are being held in the clearing. It's the damn vines.
Yeah, so a short time later, and our unlucky prisoners confirm amongst themselves, and for the sake of those not paying any attention, that it's because they touched the vines that they're not being allowed to leave. Just as the crude backboard nears completion, they once again hear the sound of the mobile phone ringing from the darkness of the temple. Only this time, someone is down there, and it falls to poor Stacy to search for the elusive device. As she sweeps the vine covered walls with her lantern, they seem to rustle as if something is hiding within, and she is discouraged from searching any further.
Yeah, I can't say I blame her either. There's a cool little moment in the script where Stacy has to extinguish the lantern and sit in total darkness while she waits for the others. Check it out.
Stacy continued, "The lamp's almost out of oil." Jeff off screen, "Then blow it out." Stacy seems terrified by this. Stacy, "Blow it out?" Jeff off screen, "We'll need it when we come down to get him on the backboard." Stacy drops into a crouch beside Matthias, sets the lamp down before her, stares at it. She clearly doesn't want to blow it out. Matthias watches her, silent. Jeff, off screen, continued, "All right?" Stacy leans forward, lifts the lamp's glass chimney, blows out the flame, dropping the shaft into darkness. So, with the backboard complete, Amy climbs aboard and is slowly lowered down into the pit to help lift Matthias from his precarious position. Unfortunately, despite the added makeshift rope, the board is still some 3 feet from the ground. Neither of the girls want to stay down there any longer, so they make the decision to lift the broken backpacker up onto the board.
Oh man, something tells me this is really gonna hurt.
Oh, I'm already tensing in preparationally. The two girls do their best to haul the poor German onto the board, but well, let's just say it could have gone better, as several loud crunches and screams painfully illustrate.
I love the little look they share after they do finally get him on the backboard. It kind of feels like there's an unspoken, well, we kind of fucked that up, didn't we? Between the two of them.
Screwing it so hard. It's unbelievable. Ultimately, though, Matthias is hoisted to the dubious safety of the top of the pyramid. With everyone assembled now up top, Jeff checks Matthias over, and it's not looking good. He doesn't think they should move him again. And is that a disapproving side glance to the girls there, Lee?
Yeah, quite possibly. They definitely look a little sheepish, I think.
Yeah, on the plus side, Jeff locates Dimitri's plane ticket dated tomorrow, through which he deduces that his fellow Greeks will realize something has happened to him and almost definitely follow the map they left with them. Amy, meanwhile, locates and pockets the keys to Heinrich's Jeep.
Set up.
Eric cranks up a nearby wind-up motor which powers a single light bulb, enough to illuminate the impromptu camp for the night. He and Jeff discuss Matthias and how to keep his legs clean so that infection from all the leaking bodily waste doesn't occur. The girls lament their actions in one of the tents before setting down to try and get some sleep, while the guys keep watch on the surrounding Mayans. Later still, Eric retires for the night and little spoons with Stacy, who then proceeds to relieve him while Amy watches behind them.
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhat awkward.
Guess he needed a hand sleeping.
Oh, here we go.
You know what they say, different strokes for different folks.
Well, it's an uncomfortable scene, Lee. More so, I think, in how out of place it feels.
Yeah, it's definitely that. I think Stacy is just grasping, sorry, for some feeling of normality. But in the book, this scene has more of a payoff as when Eric awakens the next morning, the vines, attracted by his baby batter, have grown up his legs and all over his junk.
Boosh. Nobody needs that in the morning, do they? Anyway, next morning, Jeff rises to find Amy sat outside. He takes a leak in the vines only to discover more bodies and countless mounds that presumably hold even more. It's Stacy who wakes up next, and it's her who finds the vines have grown up her leg and into her open woundly, from which it seems to be feeding. Oh my God, it's disgusting. It's a definite scare, clocking in at 47 minutes and 10 seconds, but things aren't going to end there. As Jeff investigates Stacy's screams, Matthias begs Amy for help, telling her that something is wrong. She pulls back the blanket covering his legs to reveal that the vines have covered them also and stripped them down to the bone. Jeff hurries to her screams and starts to tie off the German's legs with tourniquets as Eric notes that the vines have started growing on their clothes. As if that weren't enough, Lee, the damn cell phone starts ringing from down in the pit again.
Oh, take a breath, dude. That was a hectic couple of minutes, was it not?
Oh, it was exhausting, Lee. Not in a bad way, but I don't feel like I could take any more without a little break, you know?
Yeah, I feel you, dude. It was even worse in the script with the scene of Jeff having to cut Stacy's leg open to extricate more vine. Check it.
Interior, orange tent, day. Eric is beside Stacy trying to calm her. She started to cry. Her hands and wrists have turned a dark red, and the tendril is inside her leg, just to the left of her shin, running parallel to it. Jeff steps towards them. Jeff, what is it? Eric, the vine, it's inside her. Stacy points to her wound, sobbing now. Stacy, cut it out. You've got to cut it out. Jeff, the blade's dirty. We should. Stacy starts shaking her head, frantic. Stacy, it's moving. Can't you see? Jeff stares at the bulge, hesitating. Then it moves unquestionably, contracting and expanding, like a worm. Stacy shrieks. Stacy continued. Jeff! He gives in, crouching over her leg. Jeff, it's gonna hurt. Stacy, please, hurry. He leans forward, slices into the skin above the bulge. Stacy cries out, starts to jerk away, but Jeff presses down on her leg, holding her still. He reaches into her wound with his finger, digs out a piece of vine, tosses it aside. Oh man, I see what you mean. I don't think I could have handled much more, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's probably why they cut that part. I had a similar thing with my final major for uni where my tutor relayed the importance of giving audiences time to breathe. I think this scene is a perfect example of taking the audience to the limit and then just easing off the gas slightly. But in the script, things still haven't finished. Check this out, which occurs just after tourniqueting Matthias's legs.
She jumps up, takes 3 steps into the center of the clearing, and vomits, her hands on her knees. She wipes at the blood on her face, coughs, then bends again, another long ribbon of puke slipping free of her. Matthias continues to scream and thrash. Jeff reaches for the belts, laying in the dirt beside the backboard. He quickly ties the first one, then another around Matthias's legs, twisting them into tourniquets, cutting off the flow of blood. Stacy and Eric stoop out through the tent's flap. They stand there staring, struggling to grasp what's happened. Stacy is in her underwear and t-shirt, blood still seeping down her leg. Amy turns to face them. Matthias is weeping now, his eyes shut. The hemorrhaging has stopped. Blood lies in puddles across the backboard. Jeff is covered with it. And then there are the bones, so white, so wet looking. From the knees down, nothing but bone. Suddenly Stacy starts to scream, pointing past Amy at the dirt beyond her. They all turn to look. The vine is in motion, a long tendril slipping into the clearing, moving snake-like towards the puddle of vomit at Amy's feet. Amy backs quickly away. A second tendril emerges from the low wall of the green around the clearing. Then a third. They move rapidly, as if racing one another, both of them slipping alongside the first into the little pool of vomit. The tendrils absorb the puke, draining it, until all that's left is a deep shadow on the rocky soil. Then they withdraw, back across the clearing, silently retreating into the larger mass of green. Stacy keeps screaming. Exterior, clearing, base of the hill, day. Faintly from up the hill we hear Stacy's screams. The Mayans are finishing their morning meal. They eat in silence, showing no reaction to the sound. In the clearing, the young Mayan's corpse is buried beneath a thick growth of vine. It's horrifying, isn't it, Lee? So I can see why they cut that bit, though. Revealing the mobility of the malicious vines is still a little ways off in the film. And I think it's a reveal that's best kept for later, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So back on screen, the two girls are lowered back into the pit with tequila-soaked torches in a desperate bid to locate this goddamn cell phone.
Yeah, man. I mean, in the script, we have a scene where the survivors deliberate over the origin of the vines over a rationed meal. They suspect that the miners slash archaeologists unleashed it when they dug into the temple, and the Mayans cleared the forest around it and salted the earth to keep it contained. They also speculate that they could be sacrifices, and the Mayans worship the plant.
Yeah, so I could go for the first explanation, but the second one makes little sense, seeing as how desperately they tried to keep them away from the ruins in the first place.
Yeah, agreed. And as for why the scene is cut, I think it's always better not knowing where the big bad comes from. I think one of the worst things the Alien franchise ever did, in my opinion, was to explain the xenomorph's human based origins.
Really? That's interesting for me, Lee, because that didn't really seem to affect things for me. But discussion for another time, I think. Anyway, the girls light up their makeshift torches and move deeper into the vine covered passages in pursuit of that goddamn phone, Lee. And now it's Amy who takes the lead with a noticeably shaken Stacy in tow. The sound is coming from a dark alcove, almost completely overgrown with vines. They find the body of a young woman, possibly from the cold open, although she's too decomposed to know for sure. But in the corpse's hand sits the elusive phone.
Last, things are finally looking up for our heroes.
Yeah. So Amy reaches down to take the device, but it's dead, seemingly broken beyond repair. Their confusion grows as the ringing sound starts again. Amy moves to investigate, and impossibly, it seems as though the sound is coming from the red flowers growing on the walls. She reaches out to pick one, and a vine lashes out from the wall and latches onto her hand in a great little jump scare, clocking in at 53 minutes and 10 seconds. And it's chaos, Lee. Chaos erupts as the vines burst to life all around them, ringing out in an eerie, childlike laughter and thrusting the woman's corpse at them before snatching away their torch and trying to drag them down, Lee. They barely make it back to the rope and are pulled up the shaft to safety. And reaching the top, they are probably understandably a little upset, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, if we'd had that scene of the vines moving to absorb Amy's vomit earlier, we'd have been more prepped to expect that jump scare, and it wouldn't have been anywhere near as effective. Also, in the script here, as in the novel, the vines are using the ringtone sound to try and lure the girls into a concealed pit from which Stacy barely manages to escape.
So back up top, and Eric wants to take the keys and make a run for it while the others create a distraction. But Jeff insists that if they stay together and look out for one another, somebody will come to rescue them. Level headed Jeff wins the day for now. Later, the group share a rationed meal, and poor Stacy is convinced that the vine is still growing inside her. Jeff, meanwhile, after checking on Matthias, informs the others that they need to amputate his legs or he will die, something that doesn't go down well with the group. To make matters worse, they only have a small knife and will have to break the bones first as they won't be able to cut through them. Just what in the 127 hours are they thinking about here, Lee?
I know. I think I'd just be like, you know what, just kill me at this point. But they take a vote, and Matthias swings it in his favor, so it's off with his legs. Now, in the script, this scene actually occurs before the girls go down the shaft in search of the cell phone.
Jeff sends the girls away into the tent and doses Matthias up with tequila before beginning the procedure. And quite graphic, this, Lee.
Yeah, don't worry, Matthias, you won't feel a thing.
Yeah, Jeff was almost definitely wrong on that one. And just to add the icing on the cake, the poor man's severed legs are promptly dragged away by bloodthirsty vines as the others watch, their hopes of survival visibly dwindling in front of their eyes at this point, Lee. I think this whole scene is just one long traumatic experience. Perhaps not a scare per se, but definitely worth factoring into the scareology at 1 hour, 1 minute, and 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, in the script, Eric is not letting the vines win without a fight. Check it.
Stacy screams, pointing towards Matthias's amputated limbs. They're lying in the dirt at the base of the backboard, the blood-stained bones held together with a few remaining cords of flesh. The The vine has come snaking into the clearing. It's wrapping itself around one of the feet. As the tendril begins to drag the bones away, a second one slithers forward and lays claim to the other foot. Eric grabs the knife, jumps up, steps on the first tendril, bends to slash at it with the blade. He swoops toward the second one. Even as he does so, though, a third tendril slithers into the clearing, then a fourth. Stacy screams again, short and loud, and backs towards the tent. Eric bends and slashes, and the vine keeps coming from all directions, reaching for the bones. Jeff, leave it! Eric ignores him, cutting and stomping and tearing at the tendrils, faster and faster, but still too slow. The vine fighting back, wrapping itself around his legs. Jeff continued. Eric! He steps towards him, grabs his arm, pulls him away. They stand side by side, watching as the vine pulls the severed limbs into itself, the white of the bones vanishing into the larger mass of green. Stacy has begun to cry again. And as we pull out into a lovely cinematic wide shot, we're reminded, despite the horror we've just endured, of the genuine beauty of the surroundings here, Lee.
All about contrast to beauty and horror, comedy and drama, etc., etc.
So Stacy is starting to lose it now, and understandably so. Meanwhile, Jeff tests the Mayan sentries who shadow his movements from across the clearing. So is he reassessing Eric's idea of making a run for it? Eric comforts Amy outside the tent while Stacy awakens to what she mistakes to be the sound of them getting frisky with one another. She confronts them with the accusation and is clearly close to breaking point. Meanwhile, the vines, taking advantage of the distraction, snake towards a hapless Matthias. Jeff returns, attracted by the commotion, and Stacy reveals all about Amy's drunken behavior and how she would have slept with Matthias if she hadn't stopped her.
As we said before, I think Matthias would have spurned her too, but while all this is going on, the vines are forcing themselves down the hapless German's throat.
Yeah, it's definitely a gruesome scare, made all the worse by the knowledge that help is only a few feet away. Jeff finally spots what's happening, rushes to help, and rips the vines from the poor guy's throat, but it's too late. He is deadly. His death hits everyone really hard at this point.
Yeah, in what may be the best line of the whole film, Eric pipes up with his absolute banger. Eric, well, thank God we cut his legs off. Just stone cold killer right there.
It's
I think
classic.
if I'd been there on that pyramid with him, I'd have just shaken his hand and just walked off into a mind bullet storm because I'm never going to top that line.
Yeah. So Stacy freaks out once more, convinced now that the vines are inside her. To prove her point, she snatches up the knife, but before she can start cutting, Eric and Jeff disarm her. She screams at them that they're not listening, only for her cries to be taken up by the surrounding flowers. You're not listening. You're not listening.
Yeah, in the script, this is where Matthias is killed by the vine, and it's clear that the vine was the one making the sounds of Amy and Eric having sex. But Stacy still launches into a tirade, claiming the vines can only copy what they hear. I'm also going to put the start of Act 3 here with Jeff and Amy's morning conversation just after Matthias's death. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'd agree with that too, Lee. Yep, yep. So the next morning, Jeff and Amy watch the Mayans salt the ground around them. Jeff observes the vine must have been here for a long time as the birds and insects, even the Mayans' horses, have learned to fear the ruins and avoid them. Amy tries to explain herself to him, but he states it's no longer important. Eric calls them into the tent where they see that poor Stacy clearly does have something moving beneath her skin.
Ah, it never rains, but it pours, eh?
Oh, absolutely. So poor Stacy is not having a great time of it. And at around 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds, the surgery begins as Jeff repeatedly cuts the sobbing girl open and digs deep to pull yards and yards of bloody vine from her body. With the surgery done, the group share the day's meager rations, and it's clear that they're almost broken here. Stacy takes a swig of tequila, and more vines can be seen beneath the skin of her forehead. The group say nothing as they know she won't survive any more blood loss. Eric tells them that nobody is coming to save them and that he's going to make a run for it tonight. This time, nobody tries to talk him out of it.
Yeah, I think at this point he is probably their last hope.
They all try to sleep the day away in the tent, but Stacy stirs and heads outside to retrieve the knife. The flowers begin to chirp, mimicking her previous words. I want to cut it. I want to cut it. The others emerge from the tent a short while later to find Stacy literally peeling herself like a goddamn grape as she tries to remove the invasive plant from her body.
Yeah, it's another gross out moment of body horror. This one times in at 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 40 seconds.
Jeff tries to take the knife from her, but receives a deep cut in his hand for his troubles. It's Eric's turn now, and an enraged Stacy stabs him right through the heart. Eric expires shortly after, and the vines are quick to ensnare his body and drag him away, despite Jeff's struggles to save him. And all the while, we see the vines moving through Stacy's body as she begs for them to kill her. The vines join in, kill me, kill me. The Mayans listen in silence as Stacy's screams are cut off. It seems Jeff mercifully obliged her request.
In the script, it's even worse as we get this as well just after Eric's death. Check it out.
Jeff's POV across the clearing. The sleeping bag in which they had enshrouded Matthias is moving. He's thrashing about within it, struggling to sit up, and he's shouting too, his voice muffled by the bag. Matthias's voice, Heinrich, Heinrich! He seems to be tearing at the bag with his arms. Back to scene. Jeff hesitates just for an instant, staring in astonishment. Then he's sprinting across the clearing. He bends, struggles for the zipper. Jeff, it's okay, I'm here. He unzips the bag, and an immense tangle of vines cascades out onto the dirt. Its flowers are pale pink. They're opening and closing, still calling, louder now. Matthias's voice, Heinrich, Heinrich! The thick clot of tendrils writhes spasmodically, coiling and uncoiling. Oh, that's a pretty cool visual, man. I'm kind of bummed we didn't get to see that. Maybe it would have made the vines a little too intelligent.
And in the book, they're not just intelligent, they are sadistically evil to the point where it's speculated that they aren't even a plant at all.
What else would they be?
I don't know, some kind of eldritch being, maybe like an ancient evil sealed within the temple.
Yeah, when we're done with the breakdown, you'll have to explain how the book's vines are worse than the movie's ones.
Sounds like a plan.
Speaking of plans, it looks like Jeff has one. He is smothering Amy with their friend's blood and instructing her to run straight for the Jeep. And if it won't start, to get out and run. Moments later, he carries Amy's seemingly lifeless body down the steps of the temple to the waiting Mayans, where he gently lays her at the foot of the pyramid. He walks away around the temple, and the Mayan sentries, like before, shadow him intently. He tells them his name, his profession, whatever it takes to keep their eyes on him until he screams Amy's name and she jumps up and is running away. He advances on the Mayans and they hit him with multiple arrows. By the time they realize what has happened, though, it's too late. Amy is in the woods and running. Jeff's impromptu impersonation of a pincushion clocks in at around 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 30 seconds.
It's a really cool plan, but I wish they hadn't shown us the setup here, though. I think it had played out much cooler if we'd been led to believe that Amy had died and Jeff was committing suicide. Then her suddenly springing to life would have been a real sort of get up and cheer at the screen moment, I think.
Yeah, I do think it would have undercut the emotionality of Jeff's sacrifice, though. In the film, at this point, Jeff is still healthy, whereas in the script, it is clearer he felt that he will ultimately end up like Stacy after being cut on the hand.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the film, Jeff is fading fast and the vines are already reaching for him. But in a final act of mercy, the lead mine shoots him in the head to ease his death.
There's a really cool shot of Amy reacting to the gunshot as she flees into the jungle.
Yeah, it's a brilliantly tense moment. The music is pounding, arrows are flying, and the bullets tear into the trees around her. But Amy is seemingly unstoppable in her flight. She makes it to Heinrich's Jeep, and of course, it doesn't start straight away. But on the second attempt, the ignition kicks in, and she is a whaley. She tears up the jungle as she drives pedal to the metal until she hits the road.
It's only then that she becomes aware of the vine moving beneath the skin of her face. This final chilling moment hits at 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 42 seconds. And way to potentially end humanity, Amy. Good job. Well done.
Yeah, now this is interestingly because I didn't see this the first time round, and when I went back and looked, I can't see any vine moving under her face here.
Yeah, upon looking further into this, it seems as though I saw the unrated version, which has a little more gore and violence, more graphic amputation scene, and apparently removes Stacy's helping hand to Eric as well.
Yeah, so that would explain a lot, actually. Anyway, it's not over yet, as with our final scene, the bloody Greeks finally arrive at the now deserted pyramid.
Jesus. The script ends things a little differently, however. Have a look.
The bold man watches. He too looks grief stricken. He steps forward, aims at Jeff's head, and fires. We cut to a black screen. We hear footsteps moving quickly down a tiled floor. Doctor, off screen, a slight Spanish accent. She flagged down a tour bus just west of Koba. The voice carries over into interior hospital corridor, moving, night. A Mexican doctor in his late 50s, balding, a little stooped, his white jacket buttoned over a shirt and tie, is hurrying down the corridor, accompanied by Teresa, a dark haired woman in beige slacks, a blue blouse. Teresa has a leather briefcase, a Blackberry in her belt. She's holding Amy's passport, which she examines as they walk. It's smeared with dried blood. Doctor, and collapsed before the driver even managed to open the door. The corridor is brightly lit, very clean. Rooms open off it on either side, and we glimpse the still forms of sleeping patients as we pass IVs hanging from metal stands beside their beds. It's very quiet. Doctor continued. She revived briefly just after they brought her in. She was in bad shape, severely dehydrated, traumatized, in shock, and terribly frightened. It was impossible to make any sense of what she was saying. She was sobbing hysterical. We had to sedate her. The doctor has a manila folder under his arm. He opens it, pulls out a piece of paper, a coloured printout of a digital photo. He hands it to Teresa. Doctor continued. Her clothes were torn, she was covered in blood, but not her own. Teresa stares down at the photo. It shows Amy on a gurney, unconscious, blood-smeared, corpse-like. Teresa, how do you know? Doctor, she has no wounds. A uniformed policeman sits on a chair outside one of the rooms at the end of the corridor reading a newspaper. He rises as they approach. Teresa hands the printout back to the doctor. She keeps the passport. Teresa, that's it? That's all you have? Doctor, I'm afraid so. He nods to the policeman and leads Teresa into interior hospital room, night. A bed, a nightstand, a curtained window. Amy lies with a sheet pulled to her chin, unconscious. An IV dripping into her arm. They've cleaned the blood off her. A nurse sits in a chair beside her bed. She's in her early 20s with long dark hair tied in a bun. She stands up, stepping back from the bed as the doctor and Teresa enter. The doctor addresses her in subtitled Spanish. Doctor, has she stirred? The nurse shakes her head. The doctor moves to the bed. He takes Amy's wrist, feeling for her pulse. Amy's eyes open at his touch. She stares at him, her arm hanging limply in his grasp. He smiles down at her. Doctor continued. There you are. Teresa steps forward and Amy's gaze shifts to her. Doctor continued. My name is Dr. Hernandez. Amy's eyes return to the doctor. They fall on his face, then drift down to his chest. The doctor gestures towards Teresa. Doctor continued. And this is Miss Byrne from the US consulate? Amy is staring at his white coat, her expression going slack, almost catatonic, all the life draining from it. Doctor continued. We were hoping you might be able to shed a little light on what you've been through. Amy is silent, still staring with that dead look in her eyes at the doctor's coat. A faint green web of vine has taken root there, spreading across the white fabric. We hold on it for a beat, and then cut to black. Now, I actually much prefer what happened in the film, Lee. What about you?
Yeah, same. I mean, interesting, there's also a deleted ending, which you can find on YouTube, which shows that Amy did not survive long after her escape. A gravekeeper tending nearby graves notices a strange flower growing from Amy's grave, one that seems to mimic his whistling. So check it out. I think it's on the Blu-ray deleted scenes, and it's also easy to find on YouTube, but definitely worth checking out.
Hmm. Yeah, I prefer the film ending to that too, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they went with the best ending for the movie, though. So come on then, brother. What did you think?
Well, I enjoyed this one, Lee. I thought the film had a great concept and was really pretty effective. I thought it was pretty tense, and I thought the characters were all sort of well defined and pretty well written. I thought once I found out the vines were the sort of antagonistic force, like the sting went out of it just a little bit for me. But I thought there were some really effective moments, and yeah, I liked it, dude.
Yeah, man. I think the key is not so much the vines themselves, but A, the potential for global disaster if they spread, and B, the fact that you are trapped with them that makes them dangerous. I mean, you have to be constantly aware of your surroundings like 24/7. And the longer you are trapped on that pyramid, the weaker you're going to get, the more exhausted you'll become, and the easier prey you're going to be. And that's where the terror comes in for me. It's kind of like the inevitability of it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, man. Well, let's grab those pruning shears and break this baby down. So, as always, we'll begin the breakdown with a retrospective look at our reasons for choosing the film.
Okay, so to kick things off, let's look at how Smith adapted his novel into a screenplay. And the first thing, which I've already touched upon, is that the script is massively overwritten. Again, this may well be due to it being an earlier draft, but it does tend to read almost novelistically at times. The action lines are far too long and frequent, going into much greater detail than is necessary, and there is a great deal of meandering dialogue. I mean, this is evident in the fact that if we're going by the 1 page equals 1 minute rule, the script outpaces the film by almost 50 minutes, and yet very few scenes have actually been cut altogether. Now, I want to make it clear, I don't want to sound like I'm shitting all over Smith's script here either. Don't get me wrong, it's perfectly serviceable, but it just does feel like some elements have been lifted almost directly from the novel's pages at times, word for word.
Yeah, that was my initial impression too. Although to be fair, I mean, it's fantastically well written. I mean, the prose is really nice. Although to be fair, much of what he says on the page in terms of actually describing what the characters are doing is shown on the screen, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Okay, well, let's talk about the isolation factor now and about how well it is leveraged here. I mean, first, the obvious the ruined temple in the middle of the jungle, surrounded by murderous Mayans, and in turn, surrounded by thick jungle. Help is miles away, and our heroes' hopes of rescue are slim to none. Then there are the Mayans themselves. Now, they don't share a language with our protagonists, so their means and motivations are not initially clear to one another. Despite our heroes being meters away from people, the language barrier and their irreversible actions have inadvertently isolated them even further. Lastly, as time passes and the vines exert more stress on our protagonists, the group starts to fracture, further driving home the sense of isolation and loneliness they feel as that group dynamic breaks down and everyone becomes much more individualistic in their goals.
Yeah. So I have to say, it's interesting this for me because I'm not one to be unaffected by isolation in films. And I think one of the reasons I backed away from horror, like as I mentioned, was because, of that very thing and being uncomfortable with the sense of isolation horror can evoke. But I have to say, I didn't really feel this in this film, and it only really made sense when you started speaking about it.
Maybe you're finally becoming desensitized to the horror, dude. I'm so proud. It's like my little baby is all grown up. Um, to be fair, I mean, once the film kicks into gear, it doesn't really leave you with a lot of breathing space. Maybe everything else just factored over the isolationist aspect somewhat.
Yeah, I think it's pretty furious pace, isn't it, once it gets
Mm.
going? And yeah, I think that's probably what it was. So let's talk about the monster in the house kind of genre here. So according to Blake Snyder, the genre consists of two parts, obviously a monster and a house. Our monster, of course, being the vines in this instance, and the house being our ruined temple. Now you just inject your characters into the mix, and boom, monster in the house. Now, interestingly, Snyder states that for this trope to work, a sin must be committed, prompting the creation of a supernatural avenging angel to hold those who committed the sin responsible for their actions. Now, the only real sin we are aware of here is Amy's inferred infidelity and flirtatious nature. This doesn't really fit the mold, however, as she is our final girl and sole survivor. So, any thoughts on that, Lee?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, perhaps the sin is that of the foreigner waltzing into and wreaking havoc over a contained and established ecosystem. I mean, our hapless hero's self assured notion that they can just rock up to a foreign archaeological dig site willy nilly does show something of a disregard for local policies and customs, I think.
Hmm.
I think Jeff even states at one point that they are American, and Americans don't just disappear in foreign countries with nobody noticing.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. Okay, so let's look at our characters. Are there any introductions that stood out to you as particularly effective or memorable, Lee?
For me, it's probably the introduction of Matthias. I mean, I love the way it focuses more on his actions rather than just a written explanation of who he is. I'll read it for you. Exterior Cancun Hotel Boardwalk Day. A young man is approaching down the boardwalk from the beach, carrying fins, a mask, a snorkel. He is in his early 20s, blonde, crew cut, very tall. His name is Matthias. As he nears the pool, he stops, staring. Matthias POV, the pool. Eric and Stacy have risen to join Jeff and Amy. They're all peering into the water. Amy holds her remaining earring out to Eric and Stacy, showing them what it looks like. Back to scene. Matthias. He stands there, hesitating, then starts forwards. I like how he is reluctant to interject himself into this group dynamic, but seemingly is swayed by doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Yeah, yeah. So I enjoyed the introduction of the taxi driver and his dog. I thought it was pretty funny, but I've chosen the introduction of the temple itself. It's pretty simple, but it conveys some good exposition, and I enjoyed the prose. So check this out. Exterior, clearing, base of the hill, day. The clearing is 20 yards wide and extends in either direction as far as the eye can see, finally curving out of sight. Its soil is a deep black flecked with white, like frost rime. It's completely free of vegetation. The path resumes on the far side of a clearing, winding its way up a small hill. The hill is rocky, oddly treeless, and covered with a vine like growth, a vivid green, with hand shaped leaves and tiny red flowers. Jeff and the others step warily out onto the cleared ground, peering about, squinting in the sudden sunlight. They stare up at the flower covered hill. There are hints of ruins among the thick foliage, giant boulders with faint carvings etched into their surfaces, the crumbling remains of a fallen pillar, everything half buried beneath the vines. Stacy, it's beautiful. Amy, so beautiful. Stacy, and the mosquitoes are gone. You realize that? They've stopped biting. She smiles at the others, delighted by this development. Amy removes the cap from her camera, starts to take pictures. So I thought that was really cool. I mean, it gets across quite a bit of exposition about, obviously the insects being clear and the,
Yeah,
something about
yeah.
the animals sort of being away, but it really kind of is quite evocative as well.
We had that sort of like lesson about location as a character, didn't we? And I think this sort of pyramid is definitely it is a location, but it's also very much a character as well, and like part of the antagonistic force as well.
Yeah, yeah. So before we break down the scarology, did you have a scariest moment at all?
I think the amputation of Matthias's legs is probably the one for me, especially how it's capped off with the vines dragging them away afterward.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty nice. I mean, for me, it would hands down be the image of Stacey cutting herself open and trying to find the vines. I mean, she's so desperate in that moment and has so far gone psychologically, tormented by these flowers. It's just, it's just awful, dude.
Mm.
Really, really spooked me out. All right, then. So let's talk about scarology. First of all, yes or no answer. Does the film more or less conform to the 10-minute rule?
No.
Okay, so break it down for us.
Okay, so the main discrepancy in the 10-minute formula is in the first act. If it weren't for our cold open, the first scare would clock in at 23 minutes and 9 seconds, with Dimitri being killed by the Mayans. It's less than 10 minutes after that until our next major fright when poor Matthias falls into the pit at 30 minutes. And this is followed quickly by the Mayans executing one of their own at 36:35, and then the vines feasting on Matthias's legs at 47 and 10. This is followed swiftly by the girls realizing that the flowers are sentient and can imitate them at 53 minutes and 10 seconds. And then it's amputation time at 1 hour, 1 minute, 10 seconds. Just over 10 minutes later, the vines are cut from Stacy's body at 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds. And not long after that, Stacy takes matters into her own hands at 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 40 seconds. Then to cap us off, it's Jeff's murder at 1 hour, 25 and 30, and Amy's infected escape rounding us out at 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 42 seconds.
Okay, well, let's break down those acts for you. So, Act One begins with our cold open scare and caps off with Dimitri's killing, but there is little to nothing in the way of scares between those bookends, making for a very slow boil first act consisting of just two definitive scares. Act Two has seven scares in all, reasonably well paced throughout, with only one break of more than 10 minutes between them. Act 3 consists of just two scares, reminiscent of the opening act and capping us off nicely. So, what does that give us? It's a slow burn opener that gives us time to get to know our protagonists and gradually builds the tension until a shocking climax drives us into Act 2. At that point, the scares come thick and fast as things continually escalate until only two of our heroes remain. From there, it's a slow and personal third act, mimicking the pacing of the first and ending once more with a hard hitting climax.
Fantastic. Do you have any thoughts on the themes at work here in the film?
Well, it's interesting for me, this one, Lee. I think if we are referencing our Parker themes, we have a fear of death thematic playing out, and obviously some fear of the unknown too. In a wider context, I didn't really get the isolation thing, as I mentioned earlier. And what I landed on was this kind of man versus nature sort of thing. And this almost hubristic kind of attitude Western culture has towards the natural world versus a more connected or possibly respectful relationship as displayed by the local Mayans. So this for me came across particularly with Jeff's efforts to use his medical training and his efforts to control things. And ultimately, we're all the subject of our ecosystem, no matter how much you try to fight or control it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it's almost about the inevitability of death. I mean, once you're on that pyramid, you are done. Doesn't matter how strong you are, how smart you are. If the mines don't kill you, the vines will. And if you are too selfish to accept that fact, you quite literally risk a global apocalypse with what you may unleash, especially in less developed areas, should you actually manage to escape.
Yeah, man. Yeah, tough stuff. So, what, if anything, did you learn from this script, Lee?
Well, if you want to get it made, write a kick-ass novel first. But and besides that, it's kind of hammered home my cut, cut, cut approach and how there is no one way to write a great screenplay.
Yeah, for me, the screenplay was really a slog and very heavy on description. And I think it went maybe a bit far. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was really well written. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of it actually did end up on the screen, but there were pages and pages of descriptive passages which I thought could have probably been cut down a bit. One thing I did note is Smith uses something which I've tried a bit and which was to try and convey overlapping dialogue by separating the page down the middle and having two distinct dialogue interactions running concurrently on either side of the page. So I did really enjoy seeing that. And I do like that method of conveying overlapping dialogue.
Yeah, dual dialogue. I mean, I've used it briefly, but my opinion on it is that if it's used too much, it makes it more difficult to keep track of what's happening on the page.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, yeah. Now, you touched briefly on the differences between the book and the movie. So, can you fill us in on some of those differences now?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So the characters and their fates are very different in the book. For example, in the book, Amy is the first of the core four to die, being choked to death by the vines at night. Dimitri, nicknamed Pablo in the book, is the one to break his back in the pit. And Eric is the one infested with vines and accidentally kills Matthias. Stacy is the final survivor, and she commits suicide at the base of the hill. There is no ruined temple in the novel, just a hill with a mine shaft cut into the top, and she kills herself in out in the open in an attempt to warn people away from the vines. But unfortunately, the vines just drag her back post mortem, and ultimately, her death was for nothing.
That's pretty bleak, dude. So, you mentioned the vines being somehow even more dangerous in the novel. So, can you expand on that?
Hmm. So it's touched upon briefly in the film, more so in a couple of the deleted scenes, i.e., when they almost lure Stacy into the pit and when they pretend to be Matthias in his sleeping bag. But the vines are highly intelligent, highly sadistic predators. There are scenes in the novel where they are shown to be capable of reasoning and thought. For example, at one point, Jeff puts up signs around the hill to warn people away, but the vines, like almost immediately, pull them down. One great moment occurs shortly after Amy's death in the novel. Jeff proposes that they try and preserve her body for food, which is a suggestion that does not sit well with the others. But the plants reveal that they can imitate smells. And as the Americans get hungrier, the vines barrage them with a sense of baking bread, cooking meat, and various other scents to entice their hunger. The vines also make noise to alert the Mayans whenever Jeff attempts to sneak away and escape, kind of like an alarm system. And there's just this whole aura of malice and spite that is projected in the novel, and yet somehow is largely missing from the film.
Yeah, that sounds so cool, man. I mean, you get it a bit in the film, don't you, when they're
Mm.
sort of laughing and
Yeah.
sort of taunting the characters, but nowhere near as much as it seems like it comes across in the book. Okay, well, I think we're almost done here, Lee. But before we wrap up and talk about our next episode, what would you rate the script here and what would you rate the film?
Okay, I think I would put the script at a 5 and the film at an 8. For me, the script is just too bulky and superfluous in places, whereas I think the film is pretty airtight in terms of content. And I think it's more that the script just kind of clashes with my sort of writing style quite a lot. I think that's why I didn't sort of gel with it that well. But like you said, it's still a great script, but for me, it just didn't quite hit my buttons, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So I totally know where you're coming from. I mean, I enjoyed the film more than I enjoyed reading the script, and I thought virtually all the changes in the film were for the better. So I rated the script as a 6, and I rated the film as a 7. So that said, I do want to say the script is really, really well written. I mean, in terms of the prose, but like you say, Lee, it is a bit of a slog to read.
Mm, fair dues, mate. So what does that give us? That gives us a grand total of 11 out of 20 for the script and 15 out of 20 for the film. I think that's pretty fair. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think that's quite a fair total there, I think. I think for me, like the film was really, really good. As I say, the sting just came out of it a bit for some reason when I discovered, the vines were the
Mm,
antagonistic kind of force. But yeah,
yeah,
enjoyable stuff though, dude.
good, 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 good.
Okay, so what's on the agenda for next time, Lee?
Next time, my man, we will be scrutinizing the 2019 box office hit The Wretched.
Oh, nice title, Lee. I'm looking forward to that one. Sounds absolutely awful. So, if you enjoyed the podcast, then do please hit like, hit subscribe, and go and check out our socials. And by all means, pay us a visit at script2screampodcast.com. You can also reach out to us there if you have any suggestions, any films you'd like us to cover. We're more than happy to take your suggestions. But until next time, do take care.
Make sure you water those plants and keep on writing those scares.